Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to 2022. What a great start to the new year. We're off and running. It's going to be fantastic. Welcome to the first episode of Fundraising BIDness Talk. I'm Patrick Cyber, lead auctioneer and owner of G Events LLC, and so excited to have you join me today. We do this every Wednesday, ideally. And we sit around and we chat about the things that are current events that are going on in the fundraising auction and golf tournament business. And wow, today's show, new year, new variant, right? And what changes? I mean, what do we need to think about as we move into this new year? And I know so many fundraising nonprofits, folks that we work with are really challenged to make plans. It's brutal out there and nobody knows what's going to happen. And as soon as you think it's going to be okay, then we get told there's a new variant, right? And so I wanted to touch base on a few of those elements today and give a few thoughts. I want to encourage you, if you're joining us from wherever you are, please feel free to jump in there, say hello, type in the chat box, tell us where you're tuning in from. We always love to know who's joining us today and where you're from. It's fantastic. We've had guests tuning in from all over the country. It's been kind of fun. So I always enjoy seeing where people are tuning in from. And then second of all, and most importantly, because this is an interactive program, I want you to feel free, type in a question. I'll be able to see it here in the world headquarters of G Events. We call it the Lodge, but I will be able to see it and answer your questions. So feel free to type in a question at any time. And as we dive into it today, I kind of jokingly say, new year, new variant, right? I mean, last year it was the Delta variant, and 2 years ago it was COVID in general, and then the Delta variant, and then when we thought we were done that, all of a sudden around Thanksgiving, we learned about the new omicrom variant. And there's one of my favorites, Lindsay Zogus, over there at St. Rose, one of our great nonprofit clients that does a fantastic job. And Lindsay, Happy New Year to you. I enjoyed seeing all the family photos on social media over the holidays, and it looks like you had a great time. And can't wait to work with you in the new year here as we plan another successful event for St. Rose in March. Who knows what it's going to look like now, right? But we're going to have a great time with it. So, as I was preparing for today's show, though, it was kind of funny to me. I haven't been on StreamYard here for about a month. We decided to take the month of December for the most part off. We did one event. It was kind of interesting. We did an event. Well, we did two events in December, I guess. Take that back. One was a completely pre-recorded virtual fundraising event we did with March of Dimes, where we used virtual format, but they gave me a script and I went to the studio and I recorded it as if it was live, and they put the show together with their video and clips and different video assets and graphics and turned it into a program, and it was extremely successful. So that was kind of interesting because I actually did that recording back in November and the show aired in December. And then second of all, I did the second event I did in December was literally right up to the end of the year. It was on New Year's Eve, and it was a political fundraiser for a candidate here in Oregon, and it was a good time. We did it in person, which was exciting. I don't know how many more of those we'll get to do, full, no virtual, all 100% in person. We'll see how that goes coming forward. But as I was thinking about today's show and talking about, it seems like every time we turn the page on this pandemic, we find a new challenge, right? And one of the things that was ironic to me was that as I got into StreamYard today and I went into my studio, there's a section called brand, and you store videos and graphics and things of that nature. And I saw a video that I produced, would have been right at the beginning of when I started doing these types of shows. And we started this program a year ago. In the first week of 2021, we started doing the program, and I produced this video just to kind of introduce folks to virtual fundraising. And just before we started today, I clicked on it and I watched it, and I was like, as much as things have changed in the last 24 months, it is amazing how much, from our standpoint and our philosophy at G Events, how many things have stayed the same. So I want to play this video for you, just a real simple video, and take a look at it. And it's amazing to me how true it still is. Take a look. So anyhow, I just laughed as I read through that, because there are so many things. Those were drastic changes to our fundraising auction business. When I created that, it was all these things were brand new to us, and virtual fundraising was something that we thought, many people thought might be temporary and was kind of a Band-Aid. Here at G Events, we took more of a long-term approach to it and thought as an opportunity to expand our services and to expand, create some new tools that could be used by our nonprofit partners to help them raise even more money. And the proof is in the pudding. It's worked, and it's amazing as we start this new year how many of those things that I see on that video are exactly the same. And our advice is exactly the same. We tried to develop a philosophy through this pandemic that was, we know 100% that virtual can happen in any scenario. And if anything's changed, we perfected that. I don't know that we have reached perfection, but we have improved and made our tools more stable. We have formats that have proven track records of success. And so things haven't changed in that sense. And I think we are more prepared than ever to take on whatever this pandemic and whatever our economy, right? I mean, that's something that we have to add to this too. We talk about the pandemic, but we also have to take into account the economy with rising inflation, higher fuel prices, lack of services available, empty grocery shelves in some categories, things of that nature. I mean, all politics aside, it would be foolish to not think that those are going to present some challenges to us in the future. And when we think about that, at least I do, I think that some of those instabilities create the need and the demand for our nonprofits to minimize risk in producing fundraising events. So the days where we created these glorious ballroom events that were elaborately decorated, elaborately themed, it was all about the experience of going to the XYZ ball. Those were tremendous expenses to produce an event. And I think we all know that in many ways, COVID made it really challenging to take those risks. And yet, pre-COVID, we thought we needed to make those investments. Many organizations felt like they needed to one up the other nonprofits events and things of that nature. And the reality is we proved it through the pandemic that we don't. And so our strategy moving forward probably needs to be the same. Start with virtual, add an audience as society allows and as it becomes comfortable. And I'm going to add one element to that. And I'm going to say that we add an audience when it makes financial sense, right? We've had the opportunity to do a few hybrids in the last several months. And I'm not 100% convinced that having an audience necessarily added to the bottom line. And yet it, created some expense for the organization. And when I say expense can be both financially and also from a time element, right? We've seen through the pandemic that volunteers and general services and as a whole are difficult to find, right? Some people aren't comfortable volunteering like they used to. They have other things going on in their life, whatever it is, right? So some of the things that we thought we could always get manpower to help us with, or labor to help us with, we don't have, and our resources, both financially and physically, are constrained now. And so as we go back into incorporating an audience at times, I feel like we really need to make sure that the investment in making the event attendable, let's call it. I don't even know if that's a word. I think I could spell it if we were playing Scrabble. But if we want to make the event so that people can attend it, I think we need to be really, really aware if that investment is going to generate some return. At the end of the day, we do fundraising events for one reason, and that is to fundraise. And it's not, I think, what I've been seeing here recently in the last 6-8 months has been that many organizations feel under a great deal of pressure to host a gathering event, that they feel they have a vocal community who wants to get back together and in person. And I have to say, what I saw this fall was not necessarily the case, that organizations who were very confident that they could fill the room, and this was before Omicron. This was, Delta was on the downslide. We had even removed mask mandates in our state for a period of time. And yet we didn't see the attendance that we thought we were going to see, or that the organization thought they would be able to generate. And so when I think about the time spent trying to, whether it was sell tickets, whether it was to traffic meal choices, whether it was to traffic seating arrangements, whether it was all those elements that, decorating, securing a venue that could accommodate more people, all the different elements of producing an event that, we used to do just because we thought we had to pre-COVID. And then we learned we didn't have to during this pandemic. As we move back into that format, I'm not convinced that they generated the additional revenue to justify them. And I saw groups who produced events virtually. We produced events with them virtually in 2020. We repeated the format in 2021. We saw growth in those events. We saw which was great, because that implied to me there was a learning curve. We were ecstatic with the results in 2020. To be impressed with results from the same organization doing a virtual again in 2021, I thought was a real statement on the viability of the format, that it makes a lot of sense and with minimal risk. And so, I think it's very, very powerful stuff. And as we look going forward, we want to make sure that I'm going to encourage you, I should say, I'm going to encourage you to, as you think about whether we're going to gather or whether we're going to just do 100% virtual, think about your organization and think about, am I going to generate the additional revenue to offset the additional expense of getting into the gathering environment? And I'm going to stress it one more time. Whether it's a vocal minority or not, I'm not 100% positive, but I know that the nonprofits I visit with appear to be getting a lot of verbal pressure from their community that we need to get back together, on and on and on. And I always ask the same question. Are you telling me that your supporters are not going to support you if they can't get together in the same room? Then are they really supporters, right? Or are they there for other reasons? And so, remember, we don't have to raise as much to generate as much in a virtual format because we don't have the expenses, right? And there's multiple formats, that different levels of investment that we can utilize that can even greatly reduce the cost associated with producing a virtual. Hey, I want to touch base on a couple of comments here coming in. LinkedIn user, I'm not sure why I can't see their name, but joining us on LinkedIn today, which is great. 100%. I'm assuming you're saying you agree 100%. That's fantastic. Would love to know who you are. If you're still tuning in, just type in that comment. Tell us who you are, where you're tuning in from. And then always great to welcome our good buddy Tim Stewart, fellow auctioneer. Extremely successful in the auction business, especially in auction real estate auctions, and using the auction methodology to generate a lot of money for sellers and for nonprofits. Tim, thank you so much. And then also one of our dear friends, marketing coordinator, director for Octria, Lori Snyder-Hockman. Let's see what she has to say here. It says, event fundraising teams, there'll be a gap in people and talent as individuals have moved on to other interests. This can be okay for fresh ideas and new people, even more important to utilize the pros. Wow. That's a strong statement there. I like that a lot, Lori. Even more important to utilize the pros in the industry to help guide the strategy and make this fundraiser soar. Thank you so much. And your second comment there, happy 2022. Absolutely happy 2022 to you and Mark and your son and everybody down there in Boca Raton, joining us all the way from the East Coast in Florida. And hey, you've heard me say it 100 times, folks, that I'm a huge fan of Octria, and Lori is one of the big reasons why, because they have listened. They've been on the front edge of this whole virtual environment. They've done a great job. And I figured out who that LinkedIn user was. It's our good buddy Anka Tree Fan, the queen of women in AV production. I think I'm saying that right. But Anka over there in Idaho joining us today does a phenomenal job. And I can't tell you how much she's taught me over the last 18 months about spinning dials and how to do things. Lori introduced me to StreamYard, which we're using to do the show today, but it was Anka who really encouraged me to do a regular live stream. She thought I was crazy when I said I'd do it every week, but it's the best. So anyhow, it's a lot of fun. Great to see your smiling face electronically there, Anka, and that's fantastic. So so I mean, the bottom line here, folks, is that as we go into the new year and we have a new variant, I don't think our strategy really changes, right? This is what we set ourselves up for. This is what we, I don't know if I want to say anticipated, but I think it was the great strategy, which was let's however long this lasts, we know regardless that we can do virtual. And I'm not saying virtual is the absolute best format. Please don't misinterpret me. I'm not saying that virtual beats everything. I'm saying virtual is an incredible tool and a very valuable. It's a very valuable tool to keep the coffers, to keep cash rolling in for these nonprofits. And I think it's foolish if you're not considering it. I'm not saying it works for everybody. It definitely, I've had a couple of groups that in hindsight, I would be hard pressed to recommend virtual being the best format for them. At the same time, what really has amazed me is how many organizations that I work with that I felt like, wow, we did so much better than we did when we were gathering. And at the end of the day, that's why you're doing the events, right? And it gives you some incredible resources to share with your audience. And it allows you to keep fundraising throughout the year, utilizing and repurposing some of those video assets that you create for your virtual event. So incredible, great stuff. And the new year, the new variant doesn't scare me. I think it is what it is, right? I mean, it's out of our control. I think it's Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. He talks about that you need to focus on there's a circle of concern, which are things that are around you that you're concerned about. And then there's your circle of influence, which is the things that you have influence on and that you can change. I might be concerned about the economy. It falls in my circle of concern. It doesn't necessarily mean that I can absolutely change it. Whereas the advice that I give to our nonprofit clients and the commitment that I make in helping them with good advice to raise more money, that's in my circle of influence. And so I'm going to focus on the circle of influence. And I encourage all of us out there, with social media and with all the things going on in our world. I think sometimes we get those two circles confused and we get caught up in our circle of concern, and it almost paralyzes us. And we should be focused more on our circle of influence. So that's my goal. I'm going to continue to focus as much as I can on my circle of influence and learning new skills and strengthening partnerships with folks like Lori at Octria and with Anka at Tree Fan Events, our good friends at the AV department. I never imagined the value of having strong vendor partners that you could go to, especially in this environment, right? That we could go to. And when we incorporate, whether it's the AV department or Anka and the AV department, and we're using Octria, there's a strong team there, and I think we can do a lot of great things. So it's going to be an awesome year. A couple of things I do want. One thing it's been on my mind here recently, in retrospect and thinking back, is one of the things I've noticed watching. I spent some time over the holidays watching some replays of virtual events, and one of the things that stuck out to me was that there are a lot of virtual fundraising events that have avoided or eliminated the live auction component to their event. I totally understand why. We can talk about latency and the delay. We can talk about that it's perceived difficult for people to react. The auctioneer can't see the bidders. They can see names, how fast it populates on the screen in front of them. Some softwares are better than others, all those things. But if I could give you one best practice that is made it to the list of best practices in this new environment for me, and that is to always incorporate a live auction. And you're probably asking me why. And I think it's pretty simple. It's really simple, actually, to me. One of the things that I've noticed in this new virtual world, whether it's video meetings on Zoom or it's the incredible number of webinars that are available, our learning opportunities are off the charts, right? in this new environment. And I think it seems like every day I get an opportunity to attend a webinar, to learn something new, to see something. And many times I notice that I have a conflict in my schedule, or maybe they've given me the opportunity, hey, register and we'll send you the replay. And so I do that. I tend to say, hey, it's the middle of the business day. I need to be focused on, generating new clients and working on the existing ones, things like that. And so I always sign up for the replay, right? And they email me the link. And how many times do I actually go and watch that webinar? It's not many. And I would hazard to guess that many of you are in that same boat, that you sign up for webinars, you sign up for videos, and you never look at them. And I would tell you that in our fundraising auctions, our virtual fundraising events, that if you do not incorporate a live auction, then you've created one of those webinars. And I think it is foolish for people to think that they are going to go back and watch a replay of your event. They can't bid on a replay, okay? They can't bid on your online auction. They can't bid if you have a live auction if they only watch the replay, right? They can make a donation, and I encourage you to do that. But I think to encourage folks to tune in on your day of your event and to maximize your revenue opportunity, you should definitely be incorporating a live auction. And we are a lot better at executing them online than we were in March of 2020. And we will continue to get better as we move forward. It's going to be great. But as you start thinking about what are we going to do for 2022, gathering virtual, start with virtual, add an audience as society allows, and makes financial sense for your organization. In other words, the investment in adding an audience will generate exponential income, right? Give you a return on the investment. It's not just about atmosphere. It's not just about trying to get people together. It is about raising more money. Make sure that's the case. Okay. And then always incorporate a live auction in your virtual fundraising event. Otherwise, it's a webinar, and I would suspect that fewer people will tune in if there's not a live auction. So that is fantastic. Happy to answer any questions if there's any more as we get ready to wrap it up in this first episode of the new year. It's been great to be joined by Lori and Tim and Lindsay. Always great to see Anka. And if you're not following Anka Tree Fan, you've got about 27 different ways to follow Anka. Between Tree Fan events, between women in AV production, between, Anka with a K, on and on and on. Make sure you get in there. She's giving me a hard time that I do this weekly. But she says I'm crazy for doing it weekly. She posted here. But she's everywhere. So anyhow, hey folks, it's always great to see you. I appreciate you tuning in today. I want to remind you, and I did a little bit of this over the last few weeks that I took off. I went back and watched some of the episodes, and I am just shocked at how many of those episodes are still accurate today, and how many of them still make a lot of sense in our new environment with a new year and a new variant. So if you want to catch any of the episodes, Fundraising BIDness talk.com, and all of the episodes are there. We'll join you again here next week. I want to remind you, as always, it does not matter where you start the bidding. It's all about where you finish. Folks, have a great day. Thanks for joining me. See you next week.